Who is this monster holding the sun? Who is the they that will surely meet in Luffy's era? What is up with the dragon? Is the red line a giant serpent? And what does it mean for the sun to be enshrouded? I painstakingly answered these questions using the evidence within the mural, the written history, coming prophecy, with an evidence-based approach because I am a literature expert, and in One Piece YouTuber terms, that means I paid a truly horrifying amount of money to learn how to deconstruct elements of a story into an analysis that will make you a more informed reader in terms of maximizing the depth of your enjoyment and understanding of One Piece or whatever else I cover. As a little treat and thank you for listening to that quick spiel, here are my answers to the questions I posed earlier as a little sneak peek to many of the things that I cover in this analysis, which when I recorded it live, I spent 2 hours on it. It is Blackbeard holding the sun, which I am understanding is not the normie opinion. But most people's opinion of that comes from Emu being the non-red herring final boss of One Piece, and the name Emu lining up with the incorrect Japanese translation used in the scans of void, when the correct word is emptiness. So Blackbeard has the Yami Yami no Mi, or the dark fruit, which literally makes him darkness and is said to have infinite gravity. So the emptiness used in the opening line of the third world is actually closer to emptiness of space, a black hole, or darkness. For the sake of consideration, there's actually evidence that goes back to chapter 221 and throughout the rest of the series that indicates that Emu is more likely the dragon shown in the top middle region, or possibly even the person that looks eerily similar to Emu, being darkness himself. Blackbeard's imagery and ability, Black Vortex, represents a black hole, a region of space-time where gravity is so strong that not even light can escape it, and this monster has traits from the diversity of human evolution absorbed into them, creating a singular, all-powerful entity. But Luffy and Nika, the foil to Blackbeard in the huge story of One Piece, fight alongside the allies with those same traits, but he has bonds with these people. They are competing ideologies, so yes, I think this is Blackbeard. Who is the they who shall never meet? Well, this is connected most closely to Luffy's, Roger's, and Joy Boy's shared dream. Remember, in World 2, Joy Boy fails when men kill the sun and become God. So the promise starts in the first world, which is planted on the last line, they will never meet. Within the first world, mankind succumbs to greed and takes the sun. To take the sun, they use slaves even at the cost of their lives. And seeking liberation, slaves prayed for something, and that something made the sun god appear. Remember, at this point of the first world, the sun did not exist at all, because it was a fire within the earth. This fire belongs to all life, and yet mankind took it for themselves for the sake of power and wealth. So a very likely prayer would be to feel the sun on their faces. After all, why is Nika considered a sun god at all if he isn't the god who delivers the sun to the world? So at the end of World 1, the Earth God, furious at mankind for touching the Forbidden Sun, enshrouds the world in death and darkness, meaning the sun is blocked out completely from whoever is on the other side of this shroud, which is obviously the worlds 2 and 3. Hearing this prayer in his Nika form, Joy Boy sets out to destroy the world, removing the shroud that blocks the sun, unlocking a whole new level of energy that is all around everyone. So the Fishman Island prophecy of Luffy destroying Fishman Island, the fate of the world that Vegapunk shares at the end of Egghead Island. A great deal of this video will be my live analysis and breakdown of the Harley Texts and Mural, which I spent more than 2 hours analyzing straight on stream with the community, and we came up with a crazy amount of interesting and important observations and connections. If you want insight on specific sections or questions or themes, please use the chapters below. Otherwise, enjoy. Frankie being picked up like a little action figure. That's good stuff. And Frankie's like, what is that? It's a mural. Ripley says they're children's drawings from the ancient past carved into the fossilized tree bark. It's a cultural relic due to its historical value. They're estimated to have been drawn during the Void Century. I gotta say, for a drawing from Elbath, they don't look like giants to me. That's right, in the history we're familiar with, there were sometimes wars between the races, but never cultural exchange. Maybe that simply means this was nothing more than a child's dream. Wow, that's probably one of the biggest hints we've gotten to Luffy's dreams in a long time. There was never a cultural exchange between these other races, so that means this was nothing more than a child's dream. Basically, Luffy's dream is the same as Roger's dream, which is probably the same as Joy Boy's dream, all of which is considered childish, ridiculous, impossible, and hilarious, right? At the same time, we see Robin looking at a copy or a reprint of this mural. All of the myths and legends of Elbaf are based off of this original text, and as we're about to go over, man, there are a lot of interpretations, and it means the sun god, all the warriors of Elbaf believe in, has a different personality depending on who tells the story. Ain't that funny? May I read it? It's split into 3 chapters. They say the 3rd chapter describes the world we live in today. It's about something that's going to happen in the future. In fact, the legends of Nika are seated all throughout the world. The one common feature is that he always shows up laughing to this rhythm. Doom da da, doom da da. Then Robin starts to read it. The first world, within the earth, there was fire. Mankind succumbed to greed and touched the forbidden sun. Then slaves prayed, and the sun god appeared. The earth god raged, and with its serpent of hellfire shrouded the world in death and darkness, and they will never meet. The second world. Within the void there was breath. The forest god tamed demons, and the sun spread the fires of war. Those of the half-moon dreamed, those of the moon dreamed. Man killed the sun and became god, and the sea god stormed, and they will never meet again, and they will never meet. The third world. Within the chaos there was emptiness. The inconvenient remnants recall the promised day and hear the voice of the half-moon. The sun god dances and laughs, guiding the world to its end. The sun returns and brings a new morning, and they will surely meet. Okay, let's go over this a little bit, nice and carefully. The first world. This is like pre-Void Century. This is how the Earth was, I don't know if I want to say created exactly, but this is just the first version before anything happened, right? Mankind succumbed to greed and touched the forbidden sun. This is obviously a very strong parallel to a lot of creation myths, but the most obvious one is the forbidden fruit in the Garden of Eden. That's when mankind succumbed to greed, right? And took a bite out of the apple. So, whatever happened there may have given a group of people, obviously, an immense amount of power, leading to a technological evolution that we see down here. We see massive cities and factories, and when you have cities and factories and explosive labor, you can easily get massive income inequality, because the people that control the core tool, the people that are keeping the sun in this example, they're the ones with all the power, and so they can exploit people by enslaving them. Obviously, this is a theme that's throughout One Piece. We see slaves right here, right here, right here. These people have halos over their head. Halos are obviously something that an angel would have, but they're also giving up their life or something, right? These like little balls right here, this is mainly thought to be the Mother Flame from what I've been seeing. I don't think it's really exactly the Mother Flame, right? If you've seen my new Void Century lore video, you would know that the Mother Flame is not actually the same as the ancient energy from the Void Century that's used to activate ancient weapons. It's very similar, but it's not perfect. For example, the Mother Flame was never able to power Emmet. It was never able to turn it on. Vegapunk was in the middle of his research still, but the Mother Flame itself still is an undying flame with a lot of energy. But the ancient energy known to be used for the ancient weapons is said to be everywhere. It's said to be all around us, and that we just can't convert it. We can't convert that power source into ancient energy. The power source, right? Where is it coming from? It sure looks like they're pulling out, they're like going down into hell, right? That this is that they're changing, that this is going down into hell. See the flames, maybe the underworld. And this is like a little elevator type of thing here. And I would say that these people, this kind of reminds me of people giving their souls to Big Mom in exchange for being able to live and be quote unquote safe in the Whole Cake Chateau. Anyways, we'll continue with the first world. The enslaved prayed, right? They pray for, what do they pray for? They pray for the sun god. They pray, he appears. The sun god is known for three things, right? Being a god of freedom, being a god of laughter, and being a god of destruction. So if the enslaved people pray for him, you would think that this sun god is sun god of freedom. They prayed for their deity to liberate them. This enraged the earth god, and with its serpent of hellfire, shrouded the world in death and darkness. Here is the serpent. It has X's along its body. It has this kind of scale pattern, I guess I would call it. And you also see that on this guy's belt over here. Have to keep an eye out for it if we see it in many other places. It might be down here too. This Serpent of Hellfire, in terms of we're in Elbaf, this is something that kind of looks like the myth of Ragnarok. So you have to assume that this is like the world serpent, and that there's this very big possibility that this serpent could be really related to the Red Line. The Red Line is obviously, if you're like paying pretty close attention to the lore and world building of One Piece, the Red Line is not something that was always there. But the world serpent, could wrap itself around the world in creating a red line. So it calls into question is like, what is under the red line? What's under the red line? Like what's under Wano, where we got Pluton sleeping? Is there a giant serpent of hellfire under there waiting? You've got to wonder what happened. One of the interesting things is that this first world doesn't necessarily explain what happens to the sun god or what happens to the forbidden sun. But this serpent of hellfire ends up shrouding the world in death and darkness, and they will never meet. Who is they, right? I think they is for sure involves the sun god. The second party is definitely a lot harder to tell because the earth god raged. It's implied that the earth god raged because the sun god appeared. So why would they even want to meet if the earth god wanted to get rid of the sun god? Doesn't make a lot of sense. In the second world, within the void, so everything turns to darkness. Before we go from here to here, the first world is enshrouded in darkness. It's enshrouded, meaning it's completely blocked out from the sun. So is this a world that's like inside the actual world of One Piece, like in the underworld? It's a possibility. We're gonna have to see if we can adjust that throughout the analysis. Yeah, this could definitely be related to the reason that Vegapunk does not know which party is good or bad, or it's a gray area. The second world starts out within the void. So we're still in darkness at the beginning. There was a breath. This kind of reminds me, and void in this situation can kind of mean death as well, right? Because void is nothing, it's darkness. The sun god isn't explicitly said to be killed, but like Luffy, when he dies in Onigashima, he's in a void briefly, he's dead, and then there was a breath, and he comes back. So what is the breath? I would think that this is the sun god again, right? That the sun god has kind of returned. Because we don't get any explicit other part in this little stanza. We don't get an explicit telling that the sun god appears earlier than this, I guess, is what or later than this is what I want to say. The forest god tamed demons, and the sun spread fires of war. What I would say about this is that, as I've said in my Void Century lore video, the most recent video posted on my channel, I say Joy Boy leaves the ancient kingdom and explores the world. And exploring the world, he's also creating allies and connections between people, and thus spreading the fires of war, right? And that he gets involved in the war himself. Now, the Earth God from before, it's tough to tell how involved they are in this place, but they could definitely be connected So like the mankind succumbed to greed and touched the Forbidden Sun. Even if they're enshrouded in darkness, if they don't all die and they manage to use that power of the sun for that kingdom of people to survive, they have access to a level of technology that is just in the domain of gods, right? And what I say in my lore video is that the ancient kingdom, they had to be isolationists. Maybe in this case, it's not even on purpose, right? Because they were enshrouded in darkness. The ancient kingdom could be completely hidden. But if they still have the Forbidden Sun that they touched in the beginning of the first world, then they could use that they can use that power source to access like an unlimited amount of energy, and they could do cloning, they could do climate control, they could do some really crazy stuff, right? Everything that we see in Egghead Island and more. Joy Boy leaving the ancient kingdom, which he was born into, would spread the fires of war because he's a representation of gods. And if they are connected to the rest of the world, Joy Boy he'd be able to see the suffering and everything in the rest of the world and be like, this is wrong, I gotta change this. And that's part of the reason why I feel like Joy Boy was loosely tied to the Alliance more than fighting for the Ancient Kingdom, right? If he's a pirate, why is he going to fight for the Ancient Kingdom? Doesn't make a lot of sense, in my opinion. But I also don't think he would just straight up join the Alliance because, again, he's a pirate. So he would be involved in the war if he had a friend that was part of the Alliance. Even if he himself is not part of the Alliance, he would want to help his friend and make sure that they don't die or whatever, right? That they get their kingdom back. And so Joy Boy could be involved in the war because of his friendship and connection with Nefertari D. Lily, who is somebody that is between a pirate and upper echelon of mankind at the time. The forest god tamed demons. That's something that to me calls back to maybe the origins of devil fruits and what like makes the devil fruits, but it also strongly calls back to the current king of the world, the surviving relic of the Void Century, Emu, or at least that's what their name is said to be. And Emu appears to be connected to yokai or demons. For example, all the 5 elders turned out to be yokai. And we also see that Emu has bestowed immortality and probably just their powers and everything into them. Normally, I would say that demons, like using the term demons, it's a loaded word, right? Like you could call somebody a demon to dehumanize them. But the author of this mural and this story is a child. So, man, dude, the second world is crazy. All right, stanza 2 of the second world. It gets kind of crazy. Those of the half moon dreamed. Those of the moon dreamed. We got a regular-ass moon here. Adjacent to it is the Arc Maxim, which we know ended up in the Sky Islands that NL ultimately took back to the moon. That's a whole thing. And we know people live up there, right? There's these space pirates. There's a whole race in One Piece called the Lunarians. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're like part of the full moon people, those of the full moon or those of the moon. But then we got the people of the half moon, right? Half moon, we've seen this symbol a lot. It's, related to the Kazuki crest. Half moon is related to like a new era. It's, a different age is coming. It's kind of related to the dawn and all that kind of stuff. But it also looks like a D. And the D is known as the enemy of the gods, which is going to become relevant shortly here. But anyways, I would say based off the information that we have here, the D members, if they're part of one of these moon groups, they're going to be part of the half moon. Those are the half moon dreamed. Now, if the sun god didn't appear here where within the void there was a breath, then this to me would be the mark of the sun god, right? I think that's probably the most likely. Those of the moon dreamed. If this creates the sun god, and then the people of the moon dream, given that that's a half moon, this is a full moon, these are like opposing ideologies. So if they dream for the sun god, they're going to dream for something else. A night god, a moon god, an Earth god. Maybe not necessarily in the terms of like the name of the planet Earth, but Earth is in like Vars, right? Like the ground, right? Yeah, now that I'm looking at this, right, if this was talking about like literally Earth, E would be capitalized, and that's something that they would make sure and connect with Oda for the official translation. Earth is not capitalized, which is an interesting choice, which to me just means that the Earth god is possibly more of like a elemental thing, right? So maybe this is connected to this. I kind of like that. So the moon dreamed, rebirthing the earth god. Man killed the sun and became god. This right here marks the end of the Void Century. This is when Joy Boy, the god of... I guess this could be the god of destruction too. It's kind of hard to say, but the way that they say the sun spread fires of war, this could be in relation to like the sun or like the energy source being used to create like crazy ass weapons, the ancient weapons or something similar, and they're just like destroying the world, right? Anyways, mankind is just drowning in war, and to get out of their situation, to ultimately defeat the ancient kingdom, the people that are spreading war and havoc across the world, they killed the sun and became god. Now, they don't say they killed the sun god, which is interesting. It's very interesting, but I think it's heavily implied that it is. And the sea god stormed. This is Poseidon, and the sea god stormed. So, the sea god stormed in anger of the sun god being killed. Obviously, this immediately recalls Joy Boy's friendship with Poseidon of that era. Poseidon's ability is to create the Sea Kings, and so to me it would make sense that Poseidon, in rage, did things to the world to prevent the mankind or the new gods of having total victory. They're preserving something for the next generation, something that we've seen in One Piece so many times. And to me, it seems like Poseidon did the same thing here. While this battle was lost, the dream is not dead, so let's let the new era, the next generation, take over, right? And they will never meet. We get the they again, not saying who they are. And the sea god stormed, again burying the second world under the ocean, right? We know that the sea level has risen and just buried the vast totality of the world. That the islands that we see in One Piece, that 800 years ago, they were connected as much larger land masses, and that these chains of islands were probably actually just like a giant, continent. But that world is buried under the sea now. This page is on another level. I think Oda must have had so much fun drawing this. It is like a beautiful imagery and symbolism and composition. The third world. Within the chaos, there was emptiness. Chaos is an interesting word to use there. And then emptiness is also very interesting. Emptiness, immediately recalls void. So emptiness is connected to void. The inconvenient remnants. The inconvenient remnants, to me, the most obvious inconvenient remnants are the remnants of the half moon. The remnants are the D, right? So like I was saying, the remnants are the D poneglyphs. We get when we get Emu talking to Nefertari D Cobra back in the late 1000s chapters, he calls the poneglyphs like vexing relics and stuff like that, and also talks about how the people who bear the D now, like, they don't understand the true meaning that they are remnants. The inconvenient remnants recall the Promise Day. This being the Promise Day, I suppose. But the Promise Day is probably more like when they meet, and not necessarily like the big war. Because remember, this is a child's dream. I think they would think about the situation a lot more like that. Promise Day is when the sun god meets somebody, right? They only think this is a child's dream, right? They think this is a child's dream. It's done during the Void Century. Luffy and Roger's dream is said to be childish, and from the brief amount that we've seen Joy Boy, that dude ain't no child, right? But he represents the ideals of a child. He represents that kind of wonder and freedom and curiosity and laughter that a child would have. So I guess that's kind of why I think that this is such like these are not words that an actual child would really use. Yeah, so if the original author was Joy Boy, or just like is sharing a child's dream, or what appears to be a child's dream, Joy Boy's dream, some parts of it could look very childish and some parts of it could look very introspective, analytical, all that kind of stuff. So they recall the promised day and hear the voice of the half moon, also indicating that the half moon is related to the D, which is related to the ancient kingdom, which is related to Joy Boy. Now the half moon is very possibly less related to the ancient kingdom, because the ancient kingdom very well might not be good guys at all. If you've seen my video that I released a couple days ago, there's a lot of explanations of and evidence for that. But the people that are more of Joy Boy's side, it's their voice that's being recalled for that promised day. Joy Boy is not like Joy Boy and Luffy. They're not going to be like a race. The D so far has shown that it can be a spectrum of people, that people can possibly even like become a member of like this half moon or this D. The half moon might be, the representation for the type of pirate that Luffy is, the type of person he is, seeking freedom, seeking to change the world. The sun god dances and laughs, guiding the world to its end. So that last little bit of the world that hasn't ended yet, that hasn't sank into the ocean, the sun god's going to dance and laugh and use those ancient weapons that were left, that Joy Boy left, ultimately to destroy the world, right? Now, which world are we destroying? Well, we know that there's a whole world that is currently enshrouded in a serpent of hellfire, death, and darkness. So if you destroy whatever is enshrouded, whatever is in the darkness, then we're going to have more of this original world, right? You'll see what the true nature of the world is. A very interesting idea. I didn't connect that when I was reading this on my own. Now, the sun god dances and laughs. Now the sun returns. So you break the world. Oh man, whew, this is actually big shit right here. So the world, the actual world, the first world, is enshrouded in darkness from the serpent of hellfire. It's covered, the light cannot get to it, but when the sun god dances and laughs and guides the world to its end, the sun comes back. And what will that do? What will that do? It brings a new era, which we've always known is coming, and then they will surely meet. They being, I think I understand. They are the people that wish for the sun, right? The people that were originally had the sun stolen from them. Some section of mankind in the first world stole the sun for themselves and used that technology, used that power source to enslave. They used it for other things, right? But part of that involved is exploiting an enslaved group of people. Think about the Buccaneers. The Buccaneers then pray, and the sun god appears, and now the earth god is forever pissed off at the Buccaneers, which calls back to why even here in the third world, the Buccaneers are basically extinct, that they are ruthlessly squashed like insects. So what's going to happen when this Forbidden Sun, this power source that has been stolen from the world, from the people, something that was available to everybody equally, it was stolen. When the world is destroyed, that sun's going to return, and it's going to meet the people that have sought the sun, immediately recalling so many things in One Piece. And like the most powerfully that I could think of is the Fishman. Otahime's dream was that the people from Fishman Island get to feel the sun themselves, and they have this whole prophecy of the Promised Day and the Chosen One, and obviously everything with the sea god, which stormed at the end of the Second World, and this promise between Joy Boy and stuff. And not to mention, we haven't even gotten to the mural itself yet. I guess we could just start get going in that now, right? Oh boy, the sun is trapped. They look like they're going this way, but they could also be kind of leaning back and holding it up over their head. People are lining up here, and they're going down into the earth, which, by the way, the sun should be up. If you don't know, the sun should be up there. But no, they're going down here. And they're picking up a little piece of the sun, and they're taking it back up. And they are, to me, it looks like they're taking it this way and putting it into these factories and turning it into weapons or something, right? They're turning it into power. This would be the energy source, and this could be one of the ways that you could force a conversion into maybe something that is unintended. So what is going on here? This immediately looks like Noah, right? That's what I would think, that this is Noah, because we got like animals and stuff here calling back to Noah's Ark. We have a angel here, which looks a little bit different than the Lunarian, which we showed looking more like a Lunarian. So whatever the hell this is a little bit tougher to tell exactly, right? One of the more mysterious illustrations within the mural. But then this itself kind of looks like a boat, because originally I think a lot of people were like, this looks like an elephant. And it certainly does look like an elephant tusk right here. But also this kind of looks like a separate boat. And it'd be interesting to think about how this is possibly connected to the factory and all that kind of stuff. It has paddles. We have the Arc Maxim up here. Ends up on Skypiea, but right here we see it. People will say that this is the Mother Flame, or not the ancient weapon Uranus. This could also just be somebody using the the marrow, or the rumble fruit or whatever, Enel's fruit, where you become lightning. But I tend to think that this is Uranus. But the confusing part of that makes me not think that is the weapon that Emu uses to erase Lelouch was the Arc Maxim that Enel used. Probably not, but we already know that there's been blueprints for Pluton, so who says there couldn't have been blueprints for Maxim or Uranus or whatever, right? I would think that it'd be pretty tough for the world government to find any of the ancient weapons, just because it seems that Joy Boy went quite out of his way to make sure that they wouldn't be found. But definitely an interesting question. Interesting question indeed. Who the hell is this? This is Emu, or whatever controls whatever Emu is. If this could be Emu in the second world. But also, what is this? So I guess I would assume this is either the forest god or what happened to the person who kills Joy Boy. We know it says man killed the sun and became god, and we also know that the forest god tamed demons. So I would say that this is either Emu demon form. This is Emu as the forest god, and this is like a demon that they're controlling. That's a tough one. So the reason why I don't see this as Emu over here is because I see this as these two things. Now, Emu is somebody who survives this war and moves on to the third world. What does that mean for what we're talking about? Joy Boy left the world in a state of chaos by hiding his treasure, by hiding the ancient weapons. He essentially created a massive power vacuum, and what we know about power vacuums in One Piece is that there's chaos, and that you want to get that. And what we've learned from the world government is that they want to get rid of that chaos as soon as possible. Within the chaos, there was emptiness, or in the other translations I've seen, void in this. And people before this official translation were being like, void, Emu means void and stuff. So like. This is Emu, which pretty understandable, but we got to remember we also in One Piece there's so many themes of people's eras and being at the end of their era, and the truth is with somebody like Emu is that their era was over here. My ultimate vision of One Piece is that you can fight the change, you can fight the coming of the new era, but it's coming. There will always be a new dawn. And so because Emu is existing in a world that they really shouldn't be in, I don't ultimately see them as being the big bad, right? Their time was in the second world, but Emu has a role to play over here still, because in this emptiness, within the chaos there was emptiness, and emptiness kind of immediately starts clawing at my brain that this is, if anything, hinting towards like a Blackbeard, right? He's basically got a black hole, darkness, devil fruit. He himself is void. Emu's name might mean void, but Blackbeard is void. You kind of get what I'm putting down here? The inconvenient remnants recall the promised day and the voice of the half moon. That's being the D. The sun god dances and laughs, guiding the world. Just going over that again real quick. All right. This. Right, that's Yamato. Possibly Mink, but I think this is much more likely to be Mink. We got Loki. Super obvious. This is Emmet right here. People could say it's Frankie, and that's fine, right? Emmet. This is Lunarian or Seraphim. Seraphims also look like this. Seraphim are kind of in a weird spot where they are on the side of the world government now, so there's a little bit of a question of why they would ever fight Emu, right? It goes against their total literal programming, but being near the sun god could liberate them from basically being enslaved, right? Laboon, or possibly something to do with what's going on Zoe, because there's that whale tree on Zoe. A little bit tough to say, because you can also think that this is Pluton, and that this is Frankie obviously having the blueprints to a counter for Pluton. You could imagine that if Frankie's had the blueprints for something like 20 plus years, that Frankie might have taken some of those ideas and those blueprints have implemented them into the Sunny and even his own body. And the way that Laboon could come into the final saga and meet everybody kind of cleanly is if that red line is destroyed, which is prophesized right here. So we know the red line will be destroyed. Laboon would be able to swim his ass over there and meet everybody pretty cleanly and possibly help and fight with his friends. That'd be cool. And a big ass whale like that, they're not going to be nothing. You know what I mean? So because we only know one Lunarian, I kind of see this as more of the Seraphim ultimately siding with Joy Boy. To me, this is Vivi. Lily, is this you? The small dude next to the mermaid. Oh, this guy? Tontada. It's got to be a Tontada. Part of the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. Pretty important in the overall. Right here. Got the Ninja Star. The Katana. Probably Momonosuke. The interesting thing is they're not flying over here on a Pluton or something, right? Even though Pluton rests inside Wano. Assumed to be like a Sea King or Neptunian. This is Poseidon, obviously. I'm not even going to bother marking that. Loki kind of represents the ancient giants, and this to me looks like just like a standard giant. So right here we got this, so they seem to be aligned with the big monster, the big bad. So this is either Blackbeard pirates or God's Knights or something. They appear to have helmets on. I don't know how much you can rely on that, right? Because Luffy doesn't use a shield. Is he going to just start using a shield? It's, doesn't really appear to be in the cards. Luffy also does not have dark skin, which he has darker skin than damn near everybody on here. I personally am not paying too much attention to like if these are helmets or hair or whatever, because like why is Luffy so dark right here? It's definitely interesting. And whoever this is, they got ancient giant horns type of things, right? Looks just like Loki's over here. They got wings like Lunarians. They have like the same skin tone in the mural as Luffy or Nika, kind of drawing a connection between them. Note that if I'm taking the current story of One Piece, is there a stronger connection between Luffy and Emu or Luffy and Blackbeard, who I would argue Blackbeard and Luffy are direct foils to each other? Whoever this is, Luffy has all these different races and traits and powers, you could say, fighting alongside him. Whereas this giant demon monster thing that could be the essence of void or emptiness, it has essentially absorbed all of those traits for themselves. It's consolidated the power. It's consumed everything. Given that information and given what Blackbeard's fruit can do, the darkness fruit, it has unlimited gravity. He can eat more than one devil fruit. He can take devil fruit powers from other people. And we know that a lot of devil fruit powers are tied to bloodline elements. They're like Zoan fruits are attached to the will of the fruit, or the will, or in a will being in this case like a soul or a memory, something that has a tangible weight in One Piece. Blackbeard is able to take that or absorb that. And so I don't think it's out of the question that he could consume, absorb the traits of all these other races into this amalgamation of a monster to consolidate power for himself and use that power to obtain the Forbidden Sun for himself, right? In this example, what we've talked about is the sun god dances and laughs, guiding the world to its end. This would mean destroying the Serpent of Hellfire, the world that's now shrouded in darkness, destroying the world and releasing or returning the sun and bringing a new morning, and they will surely meet. Maybe they is the sun god and the sun. Blackbeard, being the opportunist that he is, lets Luffy do the dirty work, destroying the world, and uses that moment to seize power, just like he did in Marineford, to take the sun for himself, to steal it from everybody in the world for himself. Something that we've seen in One Piece many times, with Crocodile stealing the water in Alabasta for himself. He's stealing and essentially stealing the kingdom, stealing something that the people of Alabasta needed to be free, to be alive. We obviously also see a very similar thing in Dressrosa, where like memories and stuff are stolen. Now, for the case for this being Emu is pretty obvious, right? Because this might not be Blackbeard. That's just my vibe. I don't think Blackbeard's ass is anywhere else in this mural, right? I don't see Blackbeard. But to me, this looks like Emu. And then this could be Emu, which I'm going to get to exactly explaining why I think this could be, this dragon right here could be Emu as well. Because here in a second I'm going to get to that. But let's say this is Emu, just for the sake of argument. It's not necessarily my personal belief, but I definitely think it is very possible as well. What we've seen of Emu's in a silhouette. Emu looks like void, looks like darkness. And then we've briefly seen Emu, I guess I would say true form, and damn, Emu, big and dark and stuff like this. So the idea could be that this is Emu's true form, something like a sea god or something, right? So there's this interesting kind of possibility that Emu could be something more like the sea god, and that they actually got mad when Joy Boy was killed. Because there's this, I mean, Emu isolates themselves in the Chamber of Flowers and obsesses about the past, obsesses about Lily, obsesses about Joy Boy, is fixated on the current Luffy, is fixated on the current Vivi, is fixated on the current Blackbeard and Shirahoshi. So the question is, does the current Emu like the world? Right? They're like the creator and the king of the world, but they choose to sit in a chamber of flowers all the time. Do they like the celestial dragons? I doubt it. Do they like the five elders? Absolutely not. I don't even think the five elders like Emu. They're scared. They're super scared of Emu, but liking Emu? Hell no. Well, Blackbeard almost wins, and then so if this is Blackbeard over here, Blackbeard almost wins, gets the sun, and then it becomes two competing ideologies, right? That is what Luffy and Blackbeard are known to be. Ultimately, the ignition of this entire like 3 acts of world destruction. Blackbeard believes in consuming things and consolidating power and taking things from others to make himself stronger. And Luffy believes that we're stronger together. That like if we keep our individual strengths but fight together, that's when we're the most powerful. So it's going to be like the consolidation of all the people in the world in Blackbeard, like the traits and this, stuff like that. Like we can see this monster has all these different traits that we know very well from the world of One Piece. But Luffy has access to those traits as well, especially by the end of the story. Like he's made all these friends and alliances, people that would be willing to fight with him. Whereas Blackbeard is forcing people to fight. Like he's forcing people to fight for him. Now, what does Blackbeard want with the sun? Probably just wants to eat it. And maybe Luffy wants to eat it too, but for 2 completely different reasons. So, they will surely meet again. I think, in my opinion, in World 1, Sun God, or the Forbidden Sun, is stolen from mankind. The world is thrown into darkness because there's no more sun. And there's enslaved people that pray to have the sun return to them, and the sun god appears. In response to this, the earth god rages, and with its serpent of hellfire, it blocks the sun from people seemingly forever. The world would have to be destroyed. In the next world, the sun god is reborn again through the dreams of those of the moon and those of the half moon. The sun spread the fires of war. That could be whoever controls parts of the sun, that energy source, and is using it for weapons and technology and science. We know the ancient kingdom is far, far technically superior to the vast majority of the world. That the ancient kingdom would have been isolationist in nature. And we know that like they could be creating crazy weapons, cloning, island destroying weapons but it's not them that uses the island destroying weapons necessarily, right? It's probably Joy Boy. Like they don't necessarily want to destroy the world, I would say. But Joy Boy, I think, sure did. Nika sure would want to. And the sun god is killed, right? But the other question is, man, not mankind, man killed the sun and became God. And that's what ultimately led to the creation of the world government and Emu's consolidation of power. And in the world too, we don't really see anything about this forbidden sun or just the regular sun, right? We just see the sun god appearing because of being dreamed, of being hoped to appear. So the sun god and the sun never meet in this timeline as well, or in this world. And within chaos, there was emptiness. The inconvenient remnants recall the promised day. World is destroyed. Okay. Here is one of the big reasons why I think that dragon is Emu. It is because this is the kind of like emblem that's all around the Five Elders Room of Authority. And, you know, I went into a lot of reasons in my Five Elders Explained video that I made a while back. But the crux of it is that this here in the center is something that looks very similar to a lily flower. Could be something like a tree or something similar. But, you know, what the analysis was showing is that there's a great likelihood that this is connected to a lily flower, which is obviously connected to Nefertari D. Lily. And it also connects to Emu's like chamber of flowers that they're always hanging out in and their obsession. And I think to a degree, it also for sure like connects with this kind of, like a lily flower in terms of like symbolism represents rebirth and purity and all this kind of stuff. The first world, before it's enshrouded in darkness and before the sun is touched, it would be its most pure state, right? And then the world is reborn twice since that first world ended and was enshrouded in darkness. But anyways, these three symbols around the circle, to me, appear like dragons. Like you're looking down, I think of it as looking down, and you got the wings, you got the tail, you got the head, and then of course, you're in the mural. We got a big ass dragon right here, right? And they're called the Celestial Dragons. This serpent right here, it's a little unclear exactly what's going on in here, but it sure does look like the dragon and the snake are fighting, right? Again, this giant serpent shares some similar patterns to what's on Loki. And I don't know if I see them anywhere else. And they got like the X on it, which is something you don't see crazy often in One Piece, but obviously you see it right on Luffy's chest. And obviously in terms of piracy and treasure, X means X marks the spot. I've seen people online thinking that this is like dragon might have like the fruit that is like the world serpent fruit or something. I don't know about that, but it's kind of interesting. And he sure looks like he's coming like right out of here, huh? Like his body goes like this. There's also a bit of a possibility where people are seeing this as the story of the first world over here. And people are saying this is the second world story. And this is the third world story. But there's a very big, like, you don't see a sun god anywhere over here. You don't see Joy Boy anywhere over here. But you see Luffy right here. There's a very real possibility that this mural isn't divided up necessarily cleanly, and that this over here could be like a representation of the ancient kingdom. That this entire thing is showing maybe everything that's going to happen over here. We don't really know. The only real like natural divide we see here is this tree going down the middle, and I think that's why people kind of naturally create these kind of walls. But there might be a lot more like nuance and complexity to it than that. Maybe. I tend to kind of divide them up as well, though, I will say. Yeah, everything is on purpose, yeah. It actually kind of bothers me a lot when people act like Oda like accidentally did something, which I'm sure very occasionally happens, but the amount of work that he puts on a daily basis in this manga and its planning and stuff it's just unreal, right? Like I if somebody else knows of something that has world building that is as like permeated into the story as One Piece has done, I'd love to know what this other story is, because like I simply don't believe that it exists. I do think that One Piece is in a league of its own in terms of world building. You know, one interesting thing I was thinking here in my Void Century lore analysis, I say Imu Nerona was a real king from the Void Century, one of the leaders of the Alliance, somebody who actually existed and was, you know, ostensibly a ally to Vivi, and thus an ally to Joy Boy, even loosely, because Luffy, if Luffy finds out somebody is a friend with somebody that he's close with, then they are now his friend as well. They're kind of part of that Nakama. That's what it means to be a family. So this could be Imu Nerona, and this could be what has essentially taken power, right? Somehow Imu achieved immortality. The fruit that does immortality is called the Op-Op fruit. The Op-Op fruit, in a mechanical sense, swaps things within a space. Now, if you remember earlier, what I told you about Zoan Devil Fruits is that they have a will of their own, and wills, in terms of One Piece, are basically souls. They're memories, stuff like this, right? And we've seen in One Piece that Vegapunk, with Kuma, can remove Kuma's memories, and it has a tangible weight. It's a measurable variable. And so if the soul and memories have a tangible like component to them, then the Op-Op fruit can manipulate them within a space. So then the question is, can you put the soul of somebody else in another person's body, or will it reject it? I would say that somebody like Blackbeard appears like they can do that, given how he can use multiple devil fruits. So I don't think it's out of the question that somebody else could have done it in the past, and maybe that's how Blackbeard learned about it. It's definitely a big question, because Imu was an ally of Lily and possibly an ally of Joy Boy, but now the Imu that we know probably isn't really the same person, right? Just isn't. And maybe the real Imu Nerona sleeps inside of whoever is piloting that body, kind of like the will of a Zoan fruit would, you know, sleep or be unawakened inside the body of a Zoan fruit user. And that could kind of connect to how Imu is always completely evil and isolated and appears kind of inhuman, but then has these really strong connections to Lily in this very secretive, unknown way, and appears to have some connections with Luffy and Blackbeard and Poseidon, that there's something within Imu that appears to affect them. It's very interesting. In Norse mythology, the world tree Yggdrasil branches spread out through time and space. Well, now I feel quite certain of it, that there's just like, you know, like we call it the first world, the second world, the third world. Like how many of those are like just like kind of like a clean slate of the same world? Or are they like completely different worlds within or on top of other worlds? There's actually a chapter recently in Elbaf where the Straw Hats get caught by Road, new warrior Elbaf giant pirate navigator who's pretending to be the sun god, and they have him in this, and they have the Straw Hats in this fake little world. And in this fake little world, Luffy has to break down the walls to bust out of it, and he says like, now I'm free. And everybody in that chapter was like, oh, that was weird. And when I read that, I was like, this is like kind of low-key crazy. Like, I feel like Oda is very likely drawing a parallel between the true nature of the world that we've seen in most of One Piece and in this kind of fake world that we saw Luffy just bust down right there. And then the question too that would come up, like, the sun returns meaning the sun has been gone. The sun returns because it's been gone since the end of the first world. Like, what the fuck is the sun in the world that we've been watching in One Piece? It's got to be like a fake. Is it a reflection of the real sun or something, right? Oof, tough to know, but it's definitely very interesting. I'm still so like completely kind of bewildered about what this is exactly. Because again, there's like oars right here implying that this is like a boat of some kind or something. There's a chance that something like this could be Pluton. Not crazy good evidence in my opinion. It also reminds me a lot of Laboon and how like there's like this like interior to Laboon. And then I'm pretty thrown off by this white angel here as well. And like, what are they doing in there? This is like another interesting thing here is these halos over everybody's head. There's stuff behind these texts too. Like we see this pattern again, right? This also looks like they're all kind of like underground, right? These are roots up here. So is the final battle going to happen? This kind of like would fit, right? The knowledge that the final battle, that the One Piece is like under the Red Line or something, right? Or like the One Piece is hidden so well, like if there's like another world on top of, if the third world is on top of the second world, which is on top of the first world, like it would make sense that the Forbidden Sun is down here, under here, and has something to do with this tree. And that if you go under there, you could probably find the Ancient Kingdom as well, which is right here, in my opinion. Who would this be? Anybody have any ideas who this is? He's got like this weird ring around him, I would say. One person. Doesn't necessarily mean it's really only one person. And then we got this one right here. Is this dude NL? Well, I just picked up a picture of NL, and I'm going to keep it real. That kind of looks like NL. Like he's got, if he's like leaning forward here, seems kind of too good to believe. Oh, I haven't even really paid attention to this. If you look at the sails, this is Vivi right here. And then you got horizontal stripes. Alternating lighter to dark. Then you got vertical stripes. Dark, light, dark. Oh shit. Kind of looks like a boy. Maybe like Cross Guild or something, right? That's an interesting possibility. Cross Guild. Luffy doesn't use a shield. Luffy doesn't have dark skin. So like maybe the individual, like what the weapons look like when they look kind of plain like this aren't too important, and that they should be more considered to be more important when we see like where it's clearly a katana and when it's clearly a shuriken. Maybe that's like an important thing to consider. Yeah, I would say that this is pretty likely to be more of like a cross guild type of thing, because all these guys have the same flags. I guess the other question is like, where does Dragon, where does Sabo and the Revolutionary Army come into all this as well? Because I don't see them over here unless this is them as well over here, right? Like this could be the Revolutionary Army or Cross Guild down here. It's some factions that are close together. This small little group down here. Well, it's not. It's actually a pretty big group. Shouldn't call it small. Oh, but they're tied to Wano. Like they got a similar flag to Wano up here too. Boy. Man, they're making it tough on me. So Wano has a half moon, right? That's their thing. That certainly looks like a half moon to me right here on the Wano flag. There's something here. I'm going to have to let that kind of stir for a minute. But I think for now, we're going to call it. I think this went really well. I hope you guys had a good time hanging out with me. I had a good time streaming, and thank you for being here. But yeah, you guys have a good day. Bye now, guys.